All you have to do is look at his arm. Look at it in his fully flexed state. Does that look as lean as you would expect for a guy with 4% body fat? Coach Greg, and gonna get right to the point, Chris Bumstead tears his bicep. In case you didn't notice, watching the Mr. Olympia, the first thing I noticed, Chris Bumstead does the front double bicep, and immediately my eyes are drawn to the left bicep. And I'm thinking, why can't he flex it so hard? Why does it look smaller? Why is it deformed? It did not have the shreds or conditioning of the other arm. And so Bodybuilding and BS Nick Trilogy did a video and he reported it's been confirmed by multiple sources that Chris Bumstead did in fact tear his bicep weeks before the Olympia. And this was first brought to the people's attention from Nick Strength and Power, who 2.5 weeks ago made a video. And in that video, he showed progress photos of Chris Bumstead. And you could clearly see the left arm, it didn't have the size, the mass, the conditioning of the other arm. People said, no, his arm's always been like that. That's not true. Chris does in fact have weaker arms. The bicep tendon does not insert as far, and so Chris does not have long, full-looking arms. But he does have conditioned arms. His biceps are still shredded, and they are still big. They're just not very long. Some people's biceps insert closer to here, others further to the elbow. The further out it inserts, the better the overall arm is going to look.
Chris said, one of the things that has him motivated is there's a lot of people talking crap about him, and a lot of people want to see him fail.
Chris was feeling the stress. A lot of people were talking about Chris, and he felt perhaps that people were cheering for him to lose. But it's not true. Most people are in Chris's corner hoping he will win. But after he wins 3 straight victories, you then have to wonder, can anyone else dethrone Chris? And so people are looking for every single weakness that Chris may or may not possess in order to make the show more interesting. Does Chris have the arms to win? What about his injuries? He's injured his quad, his hamstring, his shoulders. He has an autoimmune disease. And so just because people are pointing these things out doesn't mean they're hoping that he'll lose. But perhaps Chris was feeling the stress. He knew he had a partially torn bicep, and it was making it harder to train. And so when you tear a bicep, even if it's partially torn, you have to be more careful than ever in your training. And I, for one, have had this happen before. Was in a bike accident, had a partially torn bicep. Doctor said, do not train your arms for 8 to 10 weeks. And so imagine you're several weeks out for the Olympia and you can't train your arm. And your arm's your weakness. And so he was saying, if I can't improve my physique, if I can't get it any better, it's time to retire. And so even I was speculating that perhaps Chris would hang up the trunks after this year, maybe one more year after that. And so I'm sure Chris was nervous. After all, any session he did, it could have been his last. What if he had fully torn that arm? Perhaps the doctors were saying, don't train your arm. And so Chris is in his last weeks before the Olympia, not training his bicep? Imagine the stress. Lo and behold, Chris makes it to the Olympia, and despite the smaller arm that he just couldn't flex as hard as the other, all you have to do is look at his arm. Look at it in his fully flexed state. Does that look as lean as you would expect for a guy with 4% body fat? Just take a look. Look at it. Does that look like a shredded arm? Or does it look more like an off-season arm? Coach Greg off-season arm looks as lean as Chris. How is that possible? Chris far leaner, but you can see the swelling.
We're on live.
On live?
Yeah.
Chris says, are we on live? They say yes. He immediately switches to his other side. He does not want the people to see the injured arm. And so just look at Chris standing next to Ramon. Notice the left bicep in comparison to the right. It is obvious it's not symmetrical. One arm clearly better. And so if the other bicep is torn, that explains why he can't get a better pump, why he can't get the peak to look the way it should, and why his arms are not up to his normal standard. Now, in comparison, if Ramon Dino only raised his arms higher, got the bicep higher than the deltoid, he might have beaten Chris in his pose. But as it stands, he posed it wrong. This is not how you do a front double bicep. What looks better, this or that? Which is the answer? And so Ramon Dino, although he poses pretty good, he could certainly pose a little bit better.
Did you guys not notice
how red and swollen Chris's arm was.
And so you can see Chris's arm is clearly swollen. There's a lot of redness, some discoloration. That is exactly what would happen if you were to experience a partial bicep tear. Or it could be a bad injection. If you are injecting into the biceps, most bodybuilders are shooting the glutes, the delts, the quads, the lats, everywhere. And oftentimes the biceps. And so it certainly could be something like synthol or hyaluronic acid, something you inject into the arm, shoulders, and so on to make them appear larger. And so don't be shocked if your favorite superstar is injecting something into their arms to make it appear a little bit larger. And so if you do a shot in the arm and it doesn't go right, you can in fact get redness, swelling, or injure the arm. Picture it, you're sticking a needle through your bicep and that can cause an injury. You're stabbing your arm, obviously. And so is it possible that he got a bicep tear from injecting in his arm? Well, certainly it is. Could it be possible that he was doing bicep curls or lat pull downs and curled too heavy? Of course it is. Or it could be a combination of both. I don't know. But the problem is Chris has an injured bicep and cannot train it to full capacity. Now, will they perform surgery? Well, based on the bodybuilding and BS, he's saying he's getting an MRI to examine exactly the extent of the damage. And my personal opinion is they rarely would do a surgery on an arm that's only partially torn. On my own partial tear, they never performed surgery. They simply allowed it to recover on its own. And so perhaps Chris needs to take a month or two off from training, or at least really lighten the load.
Shirts on.
Yeah, shirts on. We're doing a little photo shoot.
And so imagine Derek, after they all look in the shape of their lives, they're looking absolutely incredible. Why would he ever say, let's put our shirts on? They look amazing. This is the best they'll ever look. This is the exact time you want your shirts off. But Chris, who has a swollen bicep, some redness, perhaps he's trying to cover it up, does not want the competition to find out about his weaknesses. And so imagine this, if you're a competitor and you have an injured arm, would you point that out? Would you want the judges to immediately look at your arms? Of course not. And so you don't talk about it. You deny it. It's like a UFC fighter. If you have a torn ACL, an injury, are you going to say to your opponent, hey guys, my knee is weak. Please don't kick me there. Of course not. And so when he did his mental health update and said, maybe it's time to retire, I'll retire if I can't improve, perhaps that was because of the injured bicep. And I got to interrupt this because it's 45 minutes from the time I do a bike race. So I'm going to take, as usual, my Acti Builder and GO2 Max. And so before every bike race, I'm taking my pre-workout, taking my GO2 Max, my Acti Builder, added in some extra creatine, and if you want, beta-alanine, and it can allow you to train that much harder. The main ingredient in GO2 Max, NMN, has been shown even in the most recent research that it can improve cardiovascular capacity by incredible amounts. The FDA, as you know, has recently banned this ingredient. Why? Well, probably because it works that friggin' good. And currently, we've sold out, but we have a pre-order. It's the last pre-order we'll ever be allowed to have. And remember, NMN is not cheap, but we have bulk discounts, and so you can buy packages of 3, 5, 10, and 25 packs. Stock up for the long haul. Personally, I will have hundreds left for myself because I want to use this for years. I don't want to miss out on the benefits of NMN, not only for cardiovascular improvements, but for anti-aging purposes as well. It's a precursor to increased levels of NAD+, and these have been shown as you get older to be reduced. You keep these up, you will reduce your chance of getting age-related illnesses and death. And so, in my opinion, the best natural supplement you can get. The only thing comparable is GW501516, also known as Cardarine. But remember, that is banned by WADA. It's literally made illegal in drug-tested sports. And so if you want to be allowed to compete, not break any rules, please give GO2 Max a try. It will not cause you to fail a drug test, and this is a supplement if you're looking for cardiovascular benefits, burn more fat, burn more calories, increase endurance. This is a supplement for you. And remember, code Greg, 10% off. Click the link in the description.
It looked like some type of partial injury or not a full tear because the bicep was there, but it wasn't peaking right.
Now, luckily, it's only a partial tear because if it was a full tear, the arm would roll up. He wouldn't be able to flex it whatsoever. Would have looked really bad. And frankly, you only notice it on the front. When you see it from the rear, it didn't look any different. And when he's doing a side chest pose, it looks absolutely unbelievable. And so I don't think he's going to require surgery, but will likely need to just rest it, take some time off, and be sure to train lighter. And so please don't ego lift at the gym. And the most dangerous time to get injured, it's when you're peaking for a show, when you're down to 5% body fat, your estrogen levels are low, you're dry, you're dehydrated. This is the worst time to train heavy, when you most likely will get injured. And so hopefully Chris will learn from these experiences, train lighter than last time, focus on time under tension, and show up to the stage next year for his 5th straight Olympia victory. And although Chris was foreshadowing that perhaps it was his last Olympia, or maybe one more, that he only wanted to compete if he could keep improving, perhaps now after winning the show so convincingly, he'll continue to compete year after year and perhaps chase the all-time record, get 9 Olympia titles. And so barring injury, I don't think Chris can ever be defeated. I have no idea how long that is. I think he could win into his 40s. 20 straight titles. Could Chris actually go on forever? Who knows? We have never seen anything like this before. Chris is a new age specimen, the classic physique GOAT. Don't see him ever losing in the future. Best of luck to Chris. Hopefully his arm heals faster than last time. And don't forget, harder than last time supplements, including the Seco protein bars, the pre-workouts creatine. We have it all. We even have a clothing brand. Click the link in the description. Remember, code Greg, 10% off. Click faster than freaking last time. Like the video if you liked it. Subscribe, and then click that bell button. Get notified right away. Comment to help the algorithm. Watch one of the bloops. Subscribe to me on Instagram, Greg Doucette IBU Pro. And don't forget, we have coaching plans by me and my team, as well as phone consults. And until next time, I am out.